Hey, good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. This is Scott from the Pit. That's my YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, go to the search box, punch in my full name, Scott Pritchard, and then the Pit. My YouTube channel will come up. Today's video is for families or people who are suffering, dealing with active addiction, or you're in rehab and you're in recovery. And I just wanted to share some of my journey, and I may have to do this in two separate videos because it could get rather lengthy and I don't want it to, but I want to make sure that I fill in enough stuff that you get the story. Was raised in a rough house. I won't say a whole lot. It wasn't good, and I'm not here to blame. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just want to give you a little bit of my childhood growing up. At the age of 11, I started smoking weed. At 14, I started dropping acid and doing mescaline, and I did that up until I joined the Army. And I am a uh, honorably discharged disabled American vet, and super proud about my military background. I love everything about our service people, and my license plates reflect it. My life reflects it. The ink on my arms reflect it. Really, really proud of that. So anyhow, geez, man, this hat is not doing good up against the headboard that way. So, um, got out of the military. Uh, Found that you know I was sort of wandering because my marriage at that time was in really bad shape. I had a little girl, and my first wife and me we just weren't doing well, and so I want to fast forward here a little bit because, like I said, this thing could be 3 hours, and I just don't want to do it that way. Um, Became extremely ill around the age of 43 to 45, if I'm remembering correctly, with something called trigeminal neuralgia. And please do take the time to go look it up. Google it, trigeminal, Trigeminal. It is a nerve in your brain that is a sensory nerve, meaning it helps you feel pain. It's also connected with the hypothalamus. When I was born, a large blood vessel in my brain was resting on that trigeminal nerve. That's not how it's supposed to be, but my design came out where a blood vessel was resting on that nerve. And over the years of my life, when my heart beats, it would thump that nerve, and eventually it wore off this outer coating called mitactin, which every nerve is coated in. Well, it wore that off, and I fell into a world of white hot searing pain that went through my face, my teeth, my eye socket, into my scalp, to the point where I was basically unable to do anything. I could not go anywhere. I would sometimes go 2 weeks without any sleep. I would be up late into the night, shouting, yelling, literally banging my head. I would physically bang my head trying to make it stop. It did not. I had neurologists who had me on Neurontin and on Lyrica and on prednisone and on more things than I can even remember here. They did not know what it was. I was diagnosed with migraines. I was diagnosed with cluster headaches. I was, it just everything. They just couldn't figure it out. I had lots of treatments that were extremely painful. I had swabs rammed clear up into my nasal cavity with medication on it and left on a table for an hour at a time while those swabs stuck in there. And then they pulled them out. Fail. Didn't work. I had syringe put through the jaw hinge worked its way up under my palate and came out behind my eye, and medicine was squirted out directly on the optic nerve and the eyeball inside the skull side. They were attempting to try to fix it. Didn't work. Finally, after 12 to 14 years of this and my life being completely jacked, we found a neurosurgeon in the St. Luke's hospital system who diagnosed it just like that when I told him what was going on. And so I was diagnosed with trigeminal neuropathy. The treatment was something called microvascular decompression, so I had brain surgery. He went in, wrapped a Teflon patch around the nerve to make a separation between the nerve and that blood vessel. For a year, that worked. I had a whole year with no pain. I thought, wow, he fixed it. Just over a year, the pain began to return, and I fell back into this absolute vicious cycle of pain, of no sleep, of extreme depression, of extreme mental exhaustion, because you just, when I tell you that this was painful, for me, it was more painful than being burned with fire. And when you go on Google and you look up trigeminal neuralgia, and you read case studies and you read what doctors have to say about it, you're going to find out real quick it is not something that I would wish on my worst enemies. Well, being tired, being exhausted, anyway, I got back into pain medication. Went from trazodone, oxy-30s, hydrocodones. One time, as an addict, I stole some 180s, which you just hardly cannot get. I was putting fentanyl patches on my chest. I would take the prescription for my morphine, which was the last opioid I was on, and I had two kinds. I had immediate release for the breakthrough pain, and then I had extended release to keep a level of it in my system. Well, I would take the extended release morphine, which is only extended release because of the coating they put on it, and I would drop it in bottles of orange juice in my refrigerator, never thinking that one of my kids could have went in there to my little orange juice morphine cocktail, poured themselves a glass, drank it, and stopped their heart. You know, I was at such a high level of morphine in my system that, 2 tablets didn't bother me at all, So when I got a 30-day prescription, it was gone in 6 days, 7 days. I would crush up the immediate release morphine into powder, dissolve it into eye drops, drop the eye drops in my eye. It was a beautiful thing, baby. It was a beautiful thing, man, all of that process in there, I was stealing anybody's medication that I could find. I stole from friends, I stole from family, I stole from my mother-in-law, who has had severe chronic back pain for many, many years. She was on pain medication. She, however, was taking her pain medication per label and doctor and pharmacist instructions, not like I was. I was eating these things like Pez. There's something I learned in rehab, and it's called, a drug addict, one's too many and 1,000 is never enough, and that was so true. I was obsessed with getting drugs, using drugs, and getting more drugs, and absolutely would fly into a panic when I was about to run out. So I would try to figure out which acquaintance, which casual person that I wasn't really friends with was having a surgery or some procedure where I knew they were going to get pain meds. I'd show up with a card. Hey, how you doing? Heard about this, heard about that. And go in their house and steal every single bit of their stuff and leave them in a bad, bad place. And I'm doing this video because I want whoever's out there in active addiction, whatever family is out there that has a loved one that's in active addiction, to understand that It turns you into an animal. There's no thought of, man, this is going to harm somebody else. You don't care. Any empathy, any humanity that you have in you just goes right down the toilet. Okay? You know, when you, for me, on the opioids, on morphine, I was using so much that I could only go 5, 6 hours before I started feeling dope sick. So I had to have something. And even though I was on morphine, if I could get a handful of, Norco, Loratabs, whatever, then that's what I would do. And I would find out who had it and I would steal it. And since I was using up my legal prescription in a matter of days after getting it, I had to have something to supplement my drug abuse until I could get that next prescription. Okay? I allowed my kids to see me going through withdrawal a couple of times, and it upset them badly. I stopped sleeping in my bed because when I didn't have enough dope and I got dope sick, I couldn't lay in bed and lay still. I felt like there were ants crawling out of my skin. I would drench the sheets in sweat. I would get sick to my stomach. And my wife was angry at me, rightfully so, and I wanted her to at least be able to sleep, so I would get on the carpet in our bedroom, and by morning I had rug burns all over my arms and my legs. Yeah, passed out shaving in my bathroom and crashed through a shower door. Became violent. Now, not towards my wife and kids, but towards anybody that upset me and bothered me. Yeah, I had firearms in my bedroom with the door locked, and I would sit there and talk to myself about who needed killing, how they had offended me and bothered me, and what I would do to them if I got the chance. And this was all, I was having these conversations with myself out loud, pointing the gun in the bathroom mirror and relishing in the thought of seeing fear in their eyes. And this is what I had become, an animal. Yeah. To this day, even though I went to rehab after stealing medication from my mother-in-law for the last time and getting caught, I'll never forget the day my wife took me to rehab. She was so angry at me, but I was angry about having to go. I did not want to stop using drugs. I was so angry about it, you know. When she told me when she walked away, I said, I love you. She would not say it back. She was devastated and she was hurt. She just looked at me and she said, this is it. It's awful. When you see a drug addict and they're filthy and they're dirty and they smell and they've got sores on their body and they're just out of control and you want to despise them, I'm going to ask you to do something. Somewhere past the haze and the fog of those drugs, somebody's son or daughter is in there. Somebody's mom or dad is in there. Somebody's brother or sister's in there. They're in there. But the layers and layers and layers of the drug rot have to be lifted away to get to them. So I was in rehab. I was the oldest guy in the drug house, the rehab house. I was in there with a bunch of young bucks that were just loud and obnoxious, and I was angry about being there, and there were rules, and I couldn't call my wife. And I broke the rules, and she told the clinic director on me, and he confronted me about it, and I lied right to his face. No, I didn't call my wife. I didn't think she'd told on me. When I figured out why he was asking that, I was angry at her. I was angry at my wife for calling the director of the facility and telling him that I had made a phone call to her when I wasn't supposed to. But that was all her fault. Just like every time she confronted me and she would say, "You've got a drug problem." And I would just think in my mind, no, I don't. I have the drugs. You got the problem. Yeah, I blamed everything on everyone. And when I was in this place, it wasn't there just to get dry. The counselors there, the staff there, they were going to get at your problem. They were going to rip the scabs and the scars off of your old wounds and make you face yourself. Because if you get dry in a program without dealing with root causes of things for someone that has an addictive nature, who until those things in you are dealt with, you're going to be falling back into, you know, rehab cleanup, rehab cleanup, relapse rehab, relapse rehab, and then sometimes you don't make it at all. You just relapse and you die. Well, I was headed for death anyway because my heart was barely beating. I went to my doctor during all this time. He said, "I don't understand how your heartbeat can be that low. I can't find anything of infection. Your white blood count is right and everything." And well, I wasn't going to tell him, "Well, oh yeah, well, it's probably because I eat morphine like candy." I stayed in my room with the door closed and locked. My wife brought my food to the room because I did not want to interact with my wife or my kids. I wanted to sit in there and watch TV and do my drugs. And then while I was in there, I could start to plan out and plot, okay, this one's got drugs and that one's got drugs, and if I, what do I do? And man, bad business. So, in rehab, man, I began to. Well, the first few days I was there, I told them, "I'm not talking to you. I'm a grown man. I don't owe you any explanations. Just do your thing and let me get out of here." Wrongo. I tried to get myself kicked out without going to jail because, if they let you know right up front, if you hit anybody, assault anybody, steal anything, you're out. And and for certain things, they will call the police on you. It's simple. So behave or get kicked out and go die of a drug overdose somewhere or go to jail for doing something, bad. I tried to get myself kicked out. I told one of the young bucks who was in there I was going to cut his throat. Isn't that lovely? Told him I was going to cut his throat. Plain and simple. I said, "I'll wait till you fall asleep. I'll come in here and I'll cut your throat." I mean, really? It's a bit antisocial, don't you think? Yeah. Drugs. 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 Y'all are familiar with the DARE program, right? DARE program. Well, for me, that DARE just meant drugs are really exciting. DARE. Yeah. So, went through rehab. Uh, you know, the 2 brain surgery I had to try to fix the problem led to infections, and I had radiation. There's a whole lot there I'm going to share with you about that disorder, which I still suffer from to this day, and any kind of narcotics, barbiturates, that's all out. So all I have now is a nerve medication that's not any kind of a opioid or drug or anything. It's designed to try to keep the nerve calm. It's worked fairly well for the most part. Now here recently, my old friend, as I call it, has started acting up, and I'm a little nervous and worried that it's gonna start getting bad. And then what? I've had all the surgeries I can have. There, my neurosurgeon last thing told me was, "You're out of options. There's no other treatments for you." So yeah. I know I'm rambling here. It's difficult because I really don't like to talk about it because it paints a picture of me as an absolute monster. And, I'm going to tell you my character flaws are real. Certain circumstances can come together and they still come out. Now, when I say they still come out, no, I don't run to go use drugs, but well, those that know me real well know what my character flaws are. Those that don't know me real well don't want to know what my character flaws are. I'll just put it to you like that. So I'm going to cut this video off here, and then I'll pick it up again tomorrow with a second video to close it out. I'm going to fill in some of the gaps, time frames, and talk a little bit about the surgery I went through, the brain infection I got from it, the scraping of my skull, and oh yeah, lovely. A little more about what all of this has done to my marriage, and better news on that front, though. I know that sounded kind of ominous, like, oh my gosh, he's going to get divorced, and we'll see him, down on Truman or Prospect with a grocery cart and some aluminum cans, with his eyeballs hanging out. But no, it's better. But what I have put her through should have killed it, which is a testament to her strength. So listen, the P.I.T.